Just sign here, Mom. Don't overthink it. I looked up at my son, Marcus, standing over me with a clipboard and a pen. His wife, Brittany, stood behind him, arms crossed, her smile tight and impatient. We were sitting in their dining room, the house I'd helped them buy with my retirement savings 3 years ago. The same house where I was now being asked to sign papers I hadn't been allowed to read. What is this for again? I asked, my voice quieter than I wanted it to be. Brittany sighed, loud, dramatic, like I was wasting her precious time. It's just a formality, Helen, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. For the refinancing, you know, so we can lower the mortgage rate. It's boring legal stuff. You don't need to read all that fine print. I looked down at the papers. They were thick, official looking, and I couldn't make out half the words without my reading glasses, which I'd left in my room upstairs. My room, the smallest one in the house, the one at the end of the hall that used to be their storage closet. I hesitated. I'd like to take these to my lawyer first, I said softly. The room went cold. Marcus's jaw tightened. Brittany's smile disappeared. Your lawyer, Brittany repeated, her voice suddenly sharp. Why would you need a lawyer, Helen? Don't you trust your own son? I felt my throat tighten. Of course I trusted him. He was my boy, my only child. I'd raised him alone after his father left when Marcus was 6. I'd worked 2 jobs to put him through college. I'd been there for every scraped knee, every heartbreak, every success. But lately something had changed. I just want to understand what I'm signing, I said, keeping my voice calm. Brittany laughed. It wasn't a kind laugh. Understand? Helen, let's be honest. You didn't even finish high school. You think you're going to understand legal jargon better than the professionals we hired. My chest tightened. Marcus didn't say anything. He just stood there looking down at his phone. I felt something crack inside me, but I didn't let it show. I'd still like to read it, I said quietly. Brittany leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow felt louder than a shout. Sign the papers, Helen. Stop making this difficult. I looked at my son, waiting for him to step in, to defend me, to tell his wife to back off. But he said nothing. Picked up the pen. My hand was shaking, and then I heard it. A voice, clear, firm, coming from the hallway. Don't sign anything. We all turned. Standing in the doorway was a man in a navy suit, holding a leather briefcase. He was tall, composed, with silver hair and sharp eyes that immediately read the room. Who the hell are you? Brittany snapped. The man smiled. Polite, professional. I'm Douglas Whitman, Mrs. Helen Carter's attorney. My heart stopped. I didn't have an attorney, but I didn't say that out loud. Douglas walked over to me, calm and unbothered by Brittany's glare. He gently took the papers from my hands and flipped through them, his expression darkening with every page. Mrs. Carter, he said softly, do you know what you were about to sign? I shook my head. He turned to Marcus and Brittany, his voice still calm but now edged with steel. This is a quitclaim deed. If she'd signed this, she would have transferred full ownership of this house and all financial responsibility to you. She would have no legal claim to the property she helped purchase. And judging by this clause here, he tapped a paragraph with his pen, she'd also be liable for any debts tied to the refinancing. My stomach dropped. Brittany's face went pale. Marcus finally looked up from his phone. That's not, Marcus started. It's exactly what it is, Douglas interrupted. And if Mrs. Carter had signed this without legal counsel, she'd have been financially ruined. I couldn't breathe. My son, my boy, the child I'd sacrificed everything for. He was trying to steal my home, my security, my future. Douglas handed the papers back to Marcus. Mrs. Carter won't be signing anything today, or any day, not without a full legal review. And I suggest you both find new counsel, because the firm that drafted this document clearly has no ethics. Brittany recovered first, her voice rising in indignation. How dare you come into our home? Mrs. Carter's home, Douglas corrected smoothly. Her name is on the original deed. This is her property as much as yours, possibly more, depending on how the courts interpret the financial contributions. He turned to me, his expression softening. Mrs. Carter, I think it's time we had a private conversation, away from here. I nodded, my hand still trembling. As I stood, Brittany grabbed my arm. Hart, you're making a huge mistake, Helen, she hissed. You think you're so smart? You're going to regret this. I looked her in the eye. For the first time in months, I didn't look away. I already regret plenty, I said quietly, but signing those papers won't be one of them. I pulled my arm free and followed Douglas out of the house. As we walked to his car, I finally found my voice. Mr. Whitman, I don't understand. I didn't hire you. How did you know to come? He smiled, opening the passenger door for me. Let's just say someone who cares about you very much made sure you were protected. I slid into the car, my mind racing. Who and why now? Douglas started the engine and glanced at me. Mrs. Carter, there's something you need to know about your son, about your daughter-in-law, and about what they've been planning for the past 6 months. I felt my heart sink. What do you mean? He pulled a folder from his his briefcase and handed it to me. Everything's in here. Bank statements, emails, text messages. I think you'll want to sit down somewhere comfortable before you read it. I opened the folder. The first document was an email from Brittany to Marcus. Subject line: once she signs, we're free. My hands went numb. I looked at Douglas, my voice barely a whisper. What have they done? He didn't answer right away. He just started driving. Mrs. Carter, he said gently, I think it's time you learned the truth about the people you've been living with. I stared out the window, the folder trembling in my lap. I thought I knew my son, but I had no idea what I was about to discover. I grew up in a house where love was measured in sacrifice. My mother cleaned other people's homes so I could have school supplies. My father worked double shifts at the factory so we could eat dinner every night. They taught me that family came first, always. So when I got pregnant at 19 with Marcus, and his father walked out 6 months later, I didn't cry for long. I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. I was a waitress, cashier, a night shift stalker at the grocery store. I took every shift I could get, slept 4 hours a night, and made sure my boy had everything he needed. Marcus was my world. I remember his first day of kindergarten. He clung to my leg, scared of the other kids. I knelt down, looked him in the eye, and told him, "You're braver than you think, baby. Go show them." He did, and I watched him walk into that classroom, my heart swelling with pride. He was brilliant, top of his class. Teachers loved him. He had this charm, this way of making people feel special. I was so proud. When he got into college, I cried, happy tears, because I knew he was going to have the life I never did. I worked extra jobs to help pay his tuition. He got scholarships, thank God, but there were still expenses, books, housing, food. I sent him money every month. Sometimes it meant I skipped meals, but I didn't tell him that. He graduated with honors. I was there, sitting in the back of the auditorium, crying like a fool. When he walked across that stage, I felt like every sleepless night, every sore muscle, every sacrifice had been worth it. He hugged me afterward. "I couldn't have done this without you, Mom," he whispered. I held him tight. "You did this, baby. I'm just proud to be your mom." And I meant it. But things started changing after he met Brittany. She was beautiful, polished, confident. She came from money, the kind of family that summered in Martha's Vineyard and had a lawyer on retainer. First, I was happy for him. He deserved someone who could match his ambition. But Brittany, she had a way of looking at me that made me feel small, like I was something she had to tolerate. The first time I met her, she smiled at me with her perfect white teeth and said, "Oh, Marcus told me so much about you. You're the one who worked at the diner, right?" It wasn't what she said. It was how she said it, like my life was something quaint, something to be pitied. Marcus didn't notice, or maybe he did and just didn't care. They got engaged 6 months later. I offered to help with a wedding. I had some savings, not much, but enough to contribute something meaningful. Brittany smiled and said, "That's so sweet, Helen, but we've got it covered." I wasn't invited to the dress fittings, or the cake tasting, or the venue tours. When I asked Marcus about it, he said, "Mom, Brittany's mom is handling all that. You know how she is. She likes to be in control." I told myself it was fine, but it hurt. The wedding was beautiful, expensive. I sat in the third row. Even though I was the mother of the groom, Brittany's family filled the first 2 rows. During the reception, I barely saw Marcus. He was pulled in a dozen directions, taking photos, greeting guests, dancing with Brittany. I sat at a table in the corner with some distant cousins I barely knew. At one point, Brittany's mother came over, drink in hand, and said, "You must be so relieved, Helen. Now Marcus has someone to take care of him properly." I smiled, nodded, said nothing, but inside I felt something shift. After the wedding, they moved into a small apartment. Marcus was working his way up at a marketing firm. Brittany was in law school. I saw them once a month, maybe, always at their place. They never came to mine. Then 2 years ago, they called me. "Mom, we found the perfect house," Marcus said, his voice excited, "but we're a little short on the down payment. I know it's a lot to ask, but could you help us out?" I didn't hesitate. I pulled $50,000 from my retirement account. It was most of what I had, but it was for my son, for his future. "I'll pay you back, Mom. I promise," he said. I believed him. They bought the house, a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial in a nice neighborhood. I helped them move in, painting walls, assembling furniture, planting flowers in the front yard. Brittany walked through, inspecting everything with a critical eye. "This color is all wrong," she muttered, staring at the living room wall I had just spent 3 hours painting. I repainted it the next day. 6 months later, Brittany got pregnant. I was overjoyed. A grandchild. I couldn't wait. But when the baby came, I wasn't allowed in the delivery room. Brittany said it was too stressful to have too many people there. Her mother was there, though. I waited in the lobby for 6 hours. When I finally got to hold my grandson, Brittany handed him to me like I was a stranger. "Be careful with his head," she said sharply. I bit my tongue. Then, a year ago, Marcus called me again. "Mom, Brittany's been really stressed. The baby's a handful, and she's trying to go back to work. We were thinking, maybe you could move in with us? Help out with childcare. I was lonely in my apartment, and I wanted to be close to my grandson. Of course, I said. I gave up my lease, sold most of my furniture, moved into their house. First it was nice. I cooked, cleaned, took care of the baby, but slowly things changed. Brittany started leaving lists of chores for me. Long lists. Marcus stopped asking how I was. They went out on date nights, vacations, weekend trips. I stayed home with a baby. I didn't mind. Not really. But I started to feel invisible. Like I was a live-in maid, not a mother, not a grandmother. And then 3 months ago, I overheard them talking. I was putting the baby down for a nap when I heard their voices drifting up from the kitchen. She's getting in the way, Brittany said. I can't relax in my own home. I know, Marcus replied. But what are we supposed to do? Kick her out? Why not? She's not paying rent. She's not contributing financially. She's just here. I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart pounding. She helped us buy this house, Marcus said quietly, and we've more than repaid her by letting her live here rent-free, Brittany snapped. Marcus, we need to think about our future, not hers. There was a long pause. Then Marcus said, you're right. I felt something inside me break, but I didn't cry. Not then. I went back to my room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. That's when I knew they didn't see me as family anymore. They saw me as a problem to solve, and I had no idea how far they were willing to go. After that night, I started paying attention, really paying attention. It's amazing what you notice when you stop making excuses for people you love. Brittany stopped saying good morning to me. She'd walk right past me in the kitchen, pour her coffee, and leave without a word. Marcus started forgetting to include me in family plans. Oh, we're taking the baby to the zoo today, he'd say, already halfway out the door. Didn't think you'd want to come. You said your hip was bothering you, right? I never said that, but I didn't argue. I just watched them leave. They started having meetings in the living room with the door closed. I'd hear Brittany's voice low and sharp, Marcus's voice agreeable and soft. Sometimes I catch words, legal options, financial responsibility, transfer of assets. I told myself I was being paranoid, but then the mail started disappearing. I used to get bank statements, notifications from my retirement account, letters from the lawyer who helped me set up my will years ago. Suddenly nothing. I asked Marcus about it one morning. Have you seen my mail? I haven't gotten anything in weeks. He barely looked up from his phone. Probably just a delay with the post office. You know how it is. But 2 days later, I saw Brittany shredding papers in the den. I walked in casual like I was just passing by. She jumped startled. What are you doing? I asked. Just old bills, she said quickly, feeding another sheet into the machine. But I saw the letterhead before it was destroyed. My bank's logo. Then they started talking about my health. At dinner one night, Brittany looked at me with fake concern and said, Helen, you've seemed really confused lately. Have you been feeling okay? I set my fork down. I'm fine, I said. Are you sure? Because yesterday you asked me the same question 3 times. I hadn't. Marcus chimed in. Mom, maybe it wouldn't hurt to see a doctor, just to be safe. I looked between them. They were building a narrative, painting me as someone who couldn't take care of herself, someone who needed help, or worse, someone who wasn't mentally competent. I felt a chill run down my spine. I started keeping a journal. Every day I wrote down what happened, what they said, what they did. I hid it under my mattress, and I started making copies of everything I could find. Bank statements I pulled from the recycling bin, emails I saw open on Marcus's laptop when he left the room, text messages I glimpsed on Brittany's phone when she left it on the counter. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew I needed proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy. Proof that something was wrong. One afternoon, I was folding laundry in the den when Brittany's phone rang. She wasn't home. She'd left it on the couch. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The name on the screen, Mom. Brittany's mother. The phone stopped ringing. A voicemail notification popped up. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe desperation. Maybe instinct. I unlocked the phone. Brittany used the baby's birthday as her passcode. I'd seen her type it a dozen times. I opened the voicemail. Brittany's mother's voice was cheerful, confident. Darling, just checking in. How's the plan going? Have you gotten her to sign yet? The lawyer said once the deed's transferred, you're free and clear. And honestly, it's better for everyone. She'll be much happier in a facility where people can look after her properly. She's getting older, and she really shouldn't be a burden on you too. Call me back. Love you. My hands went numb. Played it again and again. Facility. Burden. Free and clear. They weren't just trying to take my home. They were trying to lock me away. I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. I went to my room, closed the door, and for the first time in months, I let myself cry. Not because I was sad, because I was angry. I had given them everything. My money, my time, my love, and they were repaying me by trying to erase me, but I wasn't going to let them. That night, I made a decision. I needed help, real real help, but I couldn't let Marcus or Brittany know. The next morning, I told them I was going to the grocery store. Instead, I went to the library. I sat at one of the public computers and opened my email. I hadn't checked it in months. Brittany had convinced me I didn't need to, that she'd handle everything for me. I had 127 unread messages. Most were junk, but buried in there I found something. An email from my old friend Dorothy. We'd worked together 20 years ago at the diner. She'd moved to Florida and we'd lost touch, but 6 months ago she'd written me, "Helen, I tried calling but couldn't reach you. I hope you're well. I saw your name in a legal notice in the paper here. Something about an estate transfer? I thought that was strange. Please call me if you get this. I'm worried. Love." My heart raced. I clicked on the attachment she'd included. It was a scanned newspaper clipping, a legal notice, my name, my address, a court filing. Marcus and Brittany had filed a petition to become my legal guardians, claiming I was mentally incompetent. I felt like I was going to be sick. I printed the notice, folded it carefully, slid it into my purse. Then I called Dorothy. She answered on the second ring. "Helen? Oh my God, is that really you?" "It's me," I said, my voice shaking. "I need your help." Dorothy listened to everything. The papers, the missing mail, the voicemail, the court petition. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then she said, "Helen, you need a lawyer. A real one. Someone they don't know." "I don't know any lawyers," I said. "I do," Dorothy replied. "My nephew, Douglas. He's a shark. He handles elder abuse cases." And Helen, that's what this is. Elder abuse. The words hit me like a slap. "I'll call him right now," Dorothy said. "He'll help you. I promise." "Thank you," I whispered. "Helen," Dorothy said gently, "you're not alone. Not anymore." 2 days later, Douglas Whitman showed up at the house, right when they were trying to make me sign those papers. I didn't know he was coming, but Dorothy had sent him, and he brought everything I needed. Proof, evidence, a way out. As I sat in his car, reading through the folder he'd given me, I realized something. I wasn't the helpless old woman they thought I was. I was the woman who'd survived losing everything before, and I'd survived by fighting back. This time would be no different, but I had no idea just how deep their betrayal went. Douglas drove me to a small cafe 20 minutes away from the house, somewhere Marcus and Brittany would never think to look for me. We sat in a corner booth, away from the windows. He ordered me tea. I didn't drink it. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too badly. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "Mrs. Carter," he said gently, "I need you to prepare yourself. What I'm about to show you is going to be difficult." I nodded, even though I wasn't sure I was ready. He laid out the first document. It was the guardianship petition, the one Dorothy had found in the Florida newspaper. "They filed this 3 months ago," Douglas explained. "It's a petition to have you declared mentally incompetent. If it had gone through, they would have had complete legal control over your finances, your medical decisions, your living situation, everything. But I never went to court," I said, confused, "because the hearing kept getting postponed. Your son's lawyer requested delays multiple times. I believe they were waiting until they had more evidence to support their claim." He pulled out another document. It was a medical report from a doctor I'd never seen. "This is a psychiatric evaluation," Douglas said, "dated 2 months ago. Do you remember being evaluated?" I shook my head. "I didn't think so," which means this is either fabricated or they had someone evaluate you without your knowledge or consent. My stomach turned. How is that even legal? "It's not," Douglas said, his voice hard, "which is why we're going to bury them with this." He showed me more. Bank statements showing that Marcus had been withdrawing money from the joint account I'd opened with him years ago. The one I put my retirement money into so he could manage it better. Thousands of dollars. Gone. I trusted him. I'd signed papers giving him access because he said it would make things easier. He'd been draining it for months. Where did the money go? I whispered. Douglas pulled out credit card statements, vacations, restaurants, luxury purchases, a new car for Brittany. "They've been living well, Mrs. Carter. Off your money." I felt bile rise in my throat. He wasn't done. Next, he showed me emails between Brittany and her mother, between Brittany and a real estate agent. They were planning to sell the house I'd helped them buy, the house they'd been trying to steal from me. One email from Brittany to her mother made my blood run cold. "Once we get the guardianship approved and sell the house, we'll have enough to buy the property in Vermont. We can finally get away from her. And with a conservatorship in place, she won't be able to do anything about it. The facility we found is decent. It's not 5-star, but it's cheap, and Marcus's guilt will fade eventually. He always does what I tell him." I read it twice, then a third time. Decent, cheap. My son, my baby boy, was going to lock me away in some cheap facility so they could buy a vacation home. Douglas watched my face carefully. "There's more," he said quietly. I didn't know how there could be more, but there was. He pulled out a final document, a life insurance policy, on me, taken out 8 months ago, for $500,000. Did you sign this? Douglas asked. I shook my head slowly. That's fraud, he said, and it tells me something very disturbing, Mrs. Carter. He paused, choosing his words carefully. This isn't just about taking your house or your money. This policy suggests they were planning for a future where you're no longer around. The weight of his words crushed me. I couldn't breathe. You think they? I couldn't finish the sentence. I don't know, Douglas said honestly, but I do know that people who are willing to commit fraud, forgery, and financial exploitation don't usually stop there, especially when there's this much money at stake. I sat back in the booth, my mind reeling. How had I not seen this? How had I been so blind? Douglas reached across the table and placed his hand over mine. Mrs. Carter, I know this is overwhelming, but I need you to stay strong, because we're going to fight this, and we're going to win. How? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. First, we file an emergency injunction to stop the guardianship petition. Then we file a police report for fraud and financial exploitation. We freeze all accounts they have access to, and we get you out of that house. Where would I go? Dorothy already offered. She has a guest room in Florida. You can stay with her while we sort this out. You'll be safe there. I nodded slowly. Safe. I hadn't felt safe in so long. But there's something else I need to tell you, Douglas said. I looked up at him. Your financial situation isn't as bad as you think. I frowned. What do you mean? He pulled out another folder. Do you remember your late husband's brother, William? I blinked. Uncle Will? Marcus's great uncle. Yes, he passed away 2 years ago. I know. I sent flowers. Did you know he left you something? I stared at him. What? He left you a trust. A substantial one. He never had children, and he always felt guilty about how his brother, your ex-husband, abandoned you and Marcus. So he set up a trust to take care of you in your later years. I couldn't process the words. How much? I asked. $850,000. The room spun. But no one told me. Because Marcus was listed as the executor. He was supposed to inform you and help you access the funds. But he never did. My heart stopped. He knew, Douglas confirmed. There's a letter in the file from the trust attorney, addressed to Marcus, outlining his responsibilities. He's known for 2 years. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Marcus had known I had nearly $1 million, and he'd hidden it from me, while draining my retirement account, while trying to take my house, while planning to lock me away. Why? I whispered. Douglas's expression was grim. Because if you'd known about the trust, you would have been financially independent. You wouldn't have needed them, and they couldn't have controlled you. Tears streamed down my face. Not tears of sadness, tears of rage. What do we do now? I asked, my voice stronger than before. Douglas smiled. Now, Mrs. Carter, we go to war. Over the next 3 days, Douglas worked fast. He filed the injunction. The guardianship petition was stopped. He froze the joint account. Marcus could no longer withdraw money. He contacted the trust attorney and began the process of transferring the funds into a new account in my name only. And he helped me pack. I took only what I needed. Clothes, photos, my journal. I left a note on the kitchen table. I know what you did. My lawyer will be in touch. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't owe them that. Dorothy picked me up at the airport in Florida. She hugged me so tight I thought I'd break. You're safe now, she whispered. And for the first time in a year I believed it. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Because Marcus and Brittany had made one critical mistake. They underestimated me. And now they were going to pay. Florida felt like another world. Dorothy's home was small, cozy, and filled with light. She had a garden in the back, tomatoes, herbs, flowers looming in terracotta pots. The kind of place where you could breathe. I spent the first 3 days doing nothing but sleeping and crying. Dorothy didn't push. She just brought me tea, sat with me, and let me process everything. But on the 4th day, I woke up different. The sadness had hardened into something else. Clarity. I wasn't a victim. I was a woman who'd been wronged, and I was going to make it right. Douglas called that afternoon. Mrs. Carter, we need to talk about next steps. I sat down at Dorothy's kitchen table, notebook in hand. I'm listening. The guardianship petition has been dismissed permanently. The judge reviewed the medical report and deemed it fraudulent. Marcus and Brittany's attorney has been reported to the state bar for ethics violations. I felt a flicker of satisfaction. What about the money? The joint account has been frozen pending investigation. I've also filed a civil suit against Marcus for financial exploitation and fraud. We're seeking full restitution of the funds he withdrew, plus damages. And the house. Douglas paused. That's more complicated. You contributed $50,000 to the down payment, but their names are on the deed. Legally, you'd have to prove that the funds were a loan, not a gift. I have the bank transfer, I said. That's good, but we'll need more. Did Marcus ever sign anything acknowledging the loan? I thought back. No, it was just understood. Douglas sighed. Then it's your word against his. A jury could go either way. I felt my jaw tighten. So he gets to keep the house. house? After everything? Not necessarily, Douglas said. There's another option. I leaned forward. I'm listening. Marcus and Brittany made a critical mistake when they tried to force you to sign that quitclaim deed. That document proves intent to defraud, and combined with a guardianship petition and the forged medical report, we have a strong case for a broader pattern of financial abuse. Which means we can go after them criminally. Elder abuse, fraud, forgery. If we pursue this, they could face jail time. My breath caught. Jail time? For my son? I don't know if I can do that, I said quietly. I understand, Douglas said gently, but Helen, I need you to think carefully. These people tried to rob you of everything. Your home, your money, your freedom, and they were prepared to lock you away in a facility and forget about you. I closed my eyes. He was right, but Marcus was still my son. Can I think about it? I asked. Of course. But Helen, there's something else you should know. What? They're looking for you. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? Marcus has been calling your phone, leaving voicemails. Brittany's been posting on social media, claiming you've gone missing, and they're worried sick. Felt a chill. They're trying to control the narrative, Douglas said, painting themselves as the concerned family and you as the confused, unstable elderly woman who wandered off. Rage flared in my chest. What do I do? Nothing. Let them dig their own grave. The more they lie, the worse they look when the truth comes out. And Helen, the truth will come out. I took a deep breath. Okay, so what's the plan? We wait, Douglas said. Let the legal process unfold. In the meantime, you stay safe out of sight and let me handle the rest. That's it? I just wait. For now, yes. I hung up feeling restless. Waiting had never been my strong suit. That night, I sat on Dorothy's back porch, watching the sun set over the garden. Dorothy came out with 2 glasses of wine and sat beside me. You okay? She asked. I shook my head. I don't know what to do, Dot. Part of me wants to burn them to the ground, but another part of me still loves your son, Dorothy finished gently. I nodded, tears welling up. He wasn't always like this, I said. When he was little, he was so sweet, so kind. He used to make me cards for Mother's Day. He'd save his allowance to buy me flowers. Dorothy squeezed my hand. People change, Helen. But how did I not see it? How did I miss the signs? Because you're his mother, Dorothy said simply. You loved him. You wanted to believe the best in him. That's not a weakness. That's who you are. I wiped my eyes. I don't know if I can send him to jail. Then don't, Dorothy said. But don't let him destroy you either. I looked at her. What would you do? She smiled, sad and knowing. I'd make sure they knew exactly who they messed with. Not through revenge, through truth. Over the next week, I started rebuilding. I opened a new bank account. I worked with a trust attorney to access Uncle Will's funds. I bought a new phone with a new number, and I started planning. Not revenge, not destruction, justice. Douglas had given me copies of everything. The emails, the bank statements, the forged documents. I read through them every night, and slowly an idea began to form. There was a family event coming up, Marcus's college reunion. He'd been talking about it for months before everything fell apart. It was a big deal. His entire graduating class would be there. Professors, alumni, donors. Brittany had been planning to go with him, to network with the right people. I knew because I'd overheard them talking about it, and I knew Marcus. He cared about his image, his reputation, his status. What if I took that away from him? Not quietly, not behind closed doors, publicly. I called Douglas. I want to go to the reunion, I said. Helen, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm not asking for permission, I interrupted. I'm telling you what I'm going to do, and I need your help. There was a pause. Then Douglas said, what do you have in mind? I told him. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed. Mrs. Carter, you're one hell of a woman. 2 weeks later, Douglas and I flew back north. The reunion was being held at the university's Alumni Hall, a gorgeous venue with high ceilings, chandeliers, and a stage for speeches. Marcus would be there. Brittany would be there. And so would I. But they had no idea. I wore my best dress. Dorothy helped me with my hair and makeup. I looked dignified, strong. Douglas met me at the hotel. You ready? He asked. I looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back at me wasn't the broken, scared person who'd left that house weeks ago. She was someone else. Someone who'd been underestimated for too long. I'm ready, I said. We drove to the venue. As we walked through the doors, I felt my heart pounding. But I didn't turn back, because tonight the truth was coming out, and Marcus and Brittany were about to learn that you don't betray the woman who gave you everything. Not without consequences. The Alumni Hall was exactly as I remembered it from Marcus's graduation. Grand, elegant, filled with people in expensive suits and cocktail dresses, holding wine glasses and laughing too loudly. I stood in the doorway with Douglas beside me, scanning the room, and then I saw him. Marcus. He was standing near the bar, Brittany at his side. He looked good, confident, relaxed, like he didn't have a care in the world, like he hadn't just tried to destroy his own own mother. Brittany was wearing a designer dress, her hair perfectly styled. She was laughing at something someone said, her hand resting possessively on Marcus's arm. They looked like the perfect couple. Nobody in that room knew the truth, but they were about to. Douglas touched my elbow gently. "You sure about this?" he asked one last time. I nodded. I've never been more sure of anything. He handed me a small microphone transmitter. "The AV guy is ready. When you give the signal, he'll cut the music and turn on your mic. You'll have the floor." I clipped the transmitter to my dress, hidden beneath my shawl. "Thank you, Douglas." He smiled. "Go get him, Mrs. Carter." I walked into the room slowly, deliberately. A few people glanced at me, but no one recognized me. I was just another older woman in the crowd. I made my way toward the front, near the stage, and positioned myself where Marcus would be able to see me clearly. Then I waited. The event coordinator stepped onto the stage and tapped the microphone. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have a wonderful program lined up, starting with a few words from our distinguished alumni." I tuned her out. I was watching Marcus. He was still at the bar, chatting with a group of men, probably bragging about his career, his house, his life, the life he built on my back. The coordinator continued, "And now we'd like to invite Marcus Carter to the stage to say a few words about his time here and his success in the marketing world." Applause filled the room. Marcus grinned, kissed Brittany on the cheek, and started walking toward the stage. That's when he saw me. He froze mid-step. His face went white. Our eyes locked. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just stared. He recovered quickly, forcing a smile back onto his face and continuing to the stage. But I saw the panic in his eyes. Marcus took the microphone, his voice smooth and practiced. "Thank you, everyone. It's such an honor to be here tonight. This university gave me so much, an education, lifelong friendships, and the foundation for everything I built. I owe so much to the people who believed in me and supported me along the way." He went on, talking about hard work and perseverance and gratitude. I felt sick. Brittany was watching from the side, beaming with pride. And then Marcus made a mistake. He looked directly at me and said, "I especially want to thank my mother, who sacrificed so much to help me get here. I wouldn't be where I am today without her." The room applauded. I felt rage boil over. That was my cue. I nodded to Douglas. He signaled the AV guy. The music cut out. My microphone went live. I stepped forward, my voice clear and steady. "Thank you, Marcus. That's very kind of you to say." The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at me. Marcus's face went from pale to gray. "Mom," he said, his voice cracking. I walked slowly toward the stage, my eyes never leaving his. "I didn't realize you'd be here tonight," he stammered. "I'm sure you didn't," I said calmly. The coordinator stepped forward, confused. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but it's all right," I said, my voice carrying through the room. "I'm Marcus's mother, and I have something I'd like to share with everyone here." I climbed the steps to the stage. Marcus reached out like he was going to stop me, but Douglas appeared at the base of the stairs, arms crossed, making it clear that wasn't going to happen. I took the microphone from Marcus's hand. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. "Mom, please." "Please what, Marcus?" I said softly. "Please don't embarrass you. Please don't tell the truth." He swallowed hard. I turned to face the crowd, hundreds of faces staring at me, confused, curious. I took a deep breath. "My name is Helen Carter, and I'm Marcus's mother. Like he said, I sacrificed a lot to help him get here. I worked 3 jobs to put him through school. I gave him my life savings to buy his first home. I moved into his house to help him raise his son." I paused, letting that sink in. "But what Marcus didn't tell you is that 3 weeks ago, he and his wife tried to trick me into signing away my legal rights to that home. They forged medical documents claiming I was mentally incompetent. They filed a guardianship petition to take control of my finances, and they planned to lock me away in a cheap facility so they could sell my house and buy a vacation home in Vermont." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Marcus's face went from gray to green. "That's not," he started. "It's all true," I said firmly, "and I have the evidence to prove it." Douglas stepped onto the stage and handed me a folder. I opened it and pulled out the first document. "This is the quitclaim deed they tried to force me to sign. If I had, I would have lost everything." I held it up for the room to see. "This is the fraudulent psychiatric evaluation they used to file for guardianship." Another document. "These are the bank statements showing that Marcus withdrew over $70,000 from my retirement account without my knowledge or permission." I looked at Marcus. He was shaking. "And this," I said, pulling out the final page, "is an email from Marcus's wife to her mother discussing how to get rid of me once the house was sold." I read it aloud. "Marcus's guilt will fade eventually. He always does what I tell him." The room was deadly silent. People were staring at Marcus with disgust, with shock. Brittany had disappeared into the crowd, her face buried in her hands. I turned back to Marcus. "You stood here tonight and talked about gratitude, about the people who supported you, but you forgot to mention that you repaid that support by trying to rob me, by trying to erase me. Tears were streaming down his face now. Mom, I'm sorry. No, I said, my voice breaking. You're not sorry. You're just sorry you got caught. I handed the microphone back to him and walked off the stage. The room erupted. People shouting, cameras flashing. Someone was recording on their phone. Douglas escorted me out through a side door. As we stepped into the cool night air, I heard Marcus's voice behind me, calling my name. Mom, please, let me explain. I stopped, turned. He was standing in the doorway, tears running down his face, his perfect image shattered. There's nothing to explain, Marcus, I said quietly. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. I walked away, and I didn't look back. By the next morning, the video had gone viral. Someone had posted it online. It had millions of views. The comments were brutal. People calling Marcus a monster, demanding justice, sharing their own stories of elder abuse. Douglas called me laughing. Helen, you've started a movement. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt tired, but I also felt free. The video spread like wildfire. By the second day, it was on the news. Local man exposed for elder abuse at college reunion. Viral video sparks conversation about financial exploitation of seniors. Marketing executive faces criminal investigation after mother's public confrontation. I watched the coverage from Dorothy's living room, a cup of tea going cold in my hands. Marcus's face was plastered across every screen. Headlines called him a con artist, a manipulator, a disgrace. Brittany's law firm released a statement saying she'd been placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation. People were digging into their lives, their social media, their finances. Everything they tried to hide was being dragged into the light. Dorothy sat beside me, reading the comments on her tablet. Listen to this one, she said. This woman is a hero. My own son did the same thing to me, and I didn't have the courage to fight back. She's an inspiration. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a mother who'd lost her son. Douglas called that afternoon with an update. The district attorney's office has opened a formal investigation. They're looking into the guardianship fraud, the forged medical documents, and the financial exploitation. Helen, this is big. They're talking about multiple felony charges. I closed my eyes. What does that mean for Marcus? If convicted, he could face 5 to 10 years in prison. Brittany too. My stomach twisted. And if I drop the charges? You can't, Douglas said gently. This is a criminal matter now. The state is prosecuting. It's out of your hands. I felt a strange mix of relief and guilt. Relief because the decision wasn't mine anymore. Guilt because part of me was glad. 3 days after the reunion, Marcus called me. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. I listened to it once, then deleted it. But I remember every word. Mom, please. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But I'm still your son. I need you. We need to talk. Please call me back. I love you. I love you. 3 words that used to mean everything. Now they felt hollow. A week later, Dorothy convinced me to go to the beach. You need to clear your head, she said, handing me a floppy hat and sunscreen. Come on. Doctor's orders. We walked along the shore, the sand warm beneath our feet, the ocean stretching out endlessly. Do you regret it? Dorothy asked after a while. What? Going to the reunion? Exposing him? I thought about it. No, I said finally. I regret that it had to happen. I regret that he made choices that led to this. But I don't regret standing up for myself. Dorothy nodded. Good, because what you did took us, and you gave a voice to a lot of people who've been through the same thing. We walked in silence for a while. Then I said, I just wish I could have saved him. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved, Helen. You did everything you could. He made his choices. Now he has to live with them. I nodded, blinking back tears. Do you think he'll ever understand what he did? Maybe, Dorothy said, but that's not your burden to carry anymore. 2 weeks later, Douglas sent me a new document. It was a settlement offer. Marcus and Brittany's lawyer wanted to resolve the civil case. They were offering to repay every cent they'd taken plus damages. In exchange, they wanted me to make a public statement saying the whole thing was a misunderstanding. I called Douglas immediately. Are they serious? Dead serious, he said. They're trying to rebuild their image. If you publicly forgive them, they think it'll help their criminal case. What do you think I should do? Douglas was quiet for a moment. That's not my decision, Helen. But I'll tell you this, if you take the settlement, you'll get your money back. But they'll use your forgiveness as a weapon. They'll twist it to make themselves look like victims. I thought about it. About Marcus. About the little boy who used to climb into my lap and tell me I was the best mom in the world. About the man who tried to lock me away. No, I said. I won't lie for them. Are you sure? I'm sure. Douglas exhaled. Then we go to trial. The trial was set for 3 months later. In the meantime, I focused on rebuilding my life. I found a small apartment near Dorothy. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I started volunteering at a senior center, helping other older adults navigate legal issues and financial planning. crying. I even started painting again, something I hadn't done since Marcus was a boy. I wasn't great at it, but it felt good to create something, to focus on beauty instead of betrayal. One evening, as I was finishing a canvas, a sunset over the ocean, Dorothy knocked on my door. "You have a visitor," she said, her expression unreadable. "Who?" She stepped aside. Marcus stood in the hallway. He looked terrible, thinner, older. His eyes were red and hollow. "Mom," he said, his voice breaking. I stood frozen, paintbrush still in my hand. "Can I come in?" he asked. I should have said no, but I didn't. I stepped aside and let him enter. He stood in the middle of my small living room, looking around like he didn't know what to say. Finally, he spoke. "I'm sorry." I set the paintbrush down. "For what exactly?" "For everything. For what I did. For what Brittany and I tried to do. For not protecting you." I crossed my arms. "Why are you here, Marcus?" "Because I need you to know that I never wanted to hurt you. I got caught up. Brittany kept saying we deserved more, that we'd worked hard, that you'd be fine. And I believed her. I shouldn't have, but I did." "So you're blaming her?" "No," he said quickly. "I'm not. I made my own choices. I'm responsible. I need you to know that I'm sorry, and that I love you." I looked at him, at the sun I'd raised, the man I didn't recognize. "Do you know what you took from me, Marcus?" I asked quietly. He shook his head. "You took my sense of safety, my trust, my belief that family would always be there. You made me feel worthless, invisible, like my only value was what I could give you." He was crying now. "I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it up to you." "No," I said. "You won't." He looked up confused. "Because I'm done, Marcus. I'm done sacrificing for you. I'm done letting you take from me. I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." "Mom, but I don't trust you, and I won't be part of your life anymore." He looked like I'd slapped him. "Please don't say that. It's already done," I said. "The trial is moving forward. I'm not dropping charges. I'm not making a statement. You and Brittany will face the consequences of what you did. What if I go to prison? Then you go to prison." He stared at me broken. Then he turned and walked out. I watched him go, and I didn't cry, because for the first time in my life I'd chosen myself. The courthouse was cold and imposing. Gray stone, high ceilings, the kind of place that made you feel small. But I didn't feel small anymore. I walked in with Douglas by my side, wearing a navy dress and my mother's pearl earrings. Dorothy had flown in to support me, and she sat in the front row of the gallery, giving me a reassuring nod. Marcus and Brittany sat at the defense table with their lawyers. They didn't look at me. Brittany's face was pale and drawn. Marcus stared down at his hands. The jury filed in. 12 strangers who would decide what justice looked like. The judge entered, and we all stood. And then it began. The prosecution went first. They laid out the case methodically. The forged medical documents, the guardianship petition, the financial exploitation, the quitclaim deed. They showed the jury the emails, the bank statements, the voicemail from Brittany's mother. They played the video from the reunion. I watched the jurors' faces as I spoke on that screen, exposing the truth. Some looked angry. Others looked heartbroken. One older woman in the back row wiped her eyes. Then it was my turn to testify. I walked to the stand, placed my hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Ms. Delgado, approached me gently. "Mrs. Carter, can you tell the jury about your relationship with your son?" I took a breath. "I raised Marcus alone. His father left when he was 6. I worked multiple jobs to give him everything I could. I put him through college. I helped him buy his first home. I loved him more than anything in this world." "And when did that relationship begin to change?" "After he married Brittany." "Can you describe how it changed?" I told them everything. The small slights, the exclusion, the way I was slowly erased from my own family. "And when did you first become aware that they were planning to take legal action against you?" "When I overheard them talking about the guardianship petition." "What was your reaction?" "I was terrified. I didn't understand why my own son would do that to me." Ms. Delgado showed me the quitclaim deed. "Do you recognize this document?" "Yes, that's the paper they tried to make me sign." "Did you know what it was?" "No. They told me it was for refinancing. They told me not to bother reading it. If you had signed this, what would have happened? I would have lost my home and been responsible for their debts." "And how did you feel when you learned the truth?" I looked directly at Marcus. "Betrayed." The defense attorney objected. "Calls for speculation." "Overruled," the judge said. "The witness is describing her emotional state." Ms. Delgado continued. "Mrs. Carter, do you believe your son intended to harm you?" I paused. "I believe he chose money over me. Whether he intended harm or not, that was the result." The defense tried to paint me as forgetful, confused. They suggested I'd misunderstood their intentions. Marcus's lawyer, a slick man in an expensive suit, stood up for cross-examination. "Mrs. Carter, isn't it true that you've had memory issues in recent years?" "No." "Isn't it true that you forgot appointments?" Repeated questions seemed to disoriented? That's what they told people. It wasn't true. But you're 70 years old. Surely you've experienced some cognitive decline. I'm 68, I corrected, and my mind is perfectly clear. Then how do you explain the medical report stating otherwise? It was forged. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious crime, I shot back. The lawyers shifted tactics. Mrs. Carter, you gave your son $50,000 for the house. Isn't it possible you intended that as a gift, not a loan? No, but you never asked him to sign a promissory note. I trusted him. That was my mistake. So you admit you have no legal proof the money was a loan? Douglas stood. Objection. Asked and answered. Sustained, the judge said. But the damage was done. The jury looked uncertain. Then the prosecution called their star witness, the doctor who'd supposedly written the psychiatric evaluation. Dr. Raymond Pierce, a respected psychiatrist, took the stand. Dr. Pierce, did you evaluate Helen Carter on the date listed in this report? No. Did you write this report? No. Do you recognize the signature on this document? It looks like my signature, but it's a forgery. The courtroom buzzed. How can you be certain? Because I was in London that week at a medical conference. I have receipts, boarding passes, and witnesses who can confirm I was never in the same state as Mrs. Carter. The defense attorney went pale. Furthermore, Dr. Pierce continued, the language in this report is not consistent with my professional standards, and the diagnosis listed, severe dementia with acute disorientation, would require extensive testing and observation, none of which occurred. Thank you, doctor. The jury deliberated for 2 days. I spent those days in a fog, unable to eat, unable to sleep. Dorothy stayed with me, holding my hand. Whatever happens, you did the right thing, she kept saying. On the 3rd day we got the call. The jury had reached a verdict. We filed back into the courtroom. Marcus and Brittany stood as the jury foreman rose. In the matter of financial exploitation, how do you find guilty? Brittany's knees buckled. Her lawyer caught her. In the matter of fraud, how do you find guilty? Marcus closed his eyes. In the matter of forgery, how do you find guilty? The judge banged her gavel. The defendants will remain in custody pending sentencing. Bailiffs moved forward. Handcuffs clicked into place. Brittany was sobbing. Marcus looked at me one last time, his face a mask of regret. I looked away. Sentencing came 3 weeks later. The judge was a stern woman in her 60s. She looked at Marcus and Brittany with barely concealed disgust. You exploited a woman who gave you everything. You forged documents. You manipulated the legal system. You attempted to rob a vulnerable senior citizen of her home, her money, and her freedom. She paused. This court sees cases like this far too often, and it's time we send a message that this behavior will not be tolerated. She turned to Marcus. Marcus Carter, you are sentenced to 6 years in state prison. He didn't react. She turned to Brittany. Brittany Carter, you are sentenced to 5 years in state prison. Brittany collapsed, wailing. The judge banged her gavel. This court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed me. Mrs. Carter, how do you feel about the verdict? Mrs. Carter, do you forgive your son? I stopped, looked into the cameras. I feel relieved. I feel vindicated. And I feel sad because this didn't have to happen. If my son had simply loved me the way I loved him, we wouldn't be here. Do you have a message for other seniors facing similar situations? I thought about it. Don't be silent. Don't let shame keep you trapped. And don't let anyone convince you that you're too old, too confused, or too powerless to fight back. You are worth protecting. Your dignity matters. And there are people who will help you. I walked away, Douglas beside me. As we reached his car, he turned to me. You did it, Helen. I nodded, but I didn't feel victorious. I just felt free. Life after the trial was strange. Quiet. For so long I'd been fighting, planning, surviving. Now there was nothing left to fight. Just me and the rest of my life. I moved into a little apartment in a quiet neighborhood near Dorothy. It had a balcony overlooking a small park where I could sit and watch the world go by. I started decorating. Slowly, carefully. I bought a second-hand armchair, a bookshelf, plants for the windowsill. I hung my paintings on the walls, the ones I'd started creating in the months after I left Marcus's house. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The media attention eventually faded. For a few weeks, I was that woman from the video. Strangers recognized me at the grocery store. Some thanked me, others just stared. But eventually, the story moved on, and so did I. Dorothy and I fell into a rhythm. Coffee on Sunday mornings, walks on the beach, movie nights with popcorn and wine. She introduced me to her book club, a group of women in their 60s and 70s who met once a month to discuss novels and gossip about their families. I felt at home with them. One evening, a woman named Lorraine pulled me aside. I just want to say thank you, she said. For what? For what you did. My daughter was trying to do the same thing to me, convincing me to sign over my house, telling me I was too old to manage my own affairs. I saw your story, and it gave me the courage to say no. She squeezed my my hand. You saved me. I felt tears prick my eyes. I'm glad, I whispered. Douglas called me a few months after the sentencing. How are you holding up? He asked. I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. Good. I have some news. What? The trust funds have been fully transferred. You now have access to all of Uncle Will's money, and we won the civil case. Marcus and Brittany's assets are being liquidated to repay you with interest. I sat down dizzy. How much? Including the trust, the restitution, and the damages? Just over $1.2 million. I couldn't speak. Helen, I'm here. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. You earned it, and now you get to decide what to do with it. I thought about that for weeks. What did I want to do? For so long, my life had been about survival, about sacrifice, about making sure Marcus had everything. Now I could do anything. I started small. I took a painting class. I'd always loved art, but I'd never had the time or money to really pursue it. Now I did. The teacher, a gentleman named Paul, was patient and encouraging. You have a good eye, he told me one afternoon, looking at my latest canvas, a stormy ocean scene. Thank you, I said, smiling. Have you ever thought about selling your work? I laughed. No, I'm not that good. You're better than you think. I also started volunteering. At the senior center, I helped other older adults navigate legal issues, financial planning, and family conflicts. I shared my story, not to brag, but to let them know they weren't alone, that they deserved to be heard, protected, valued. One woman in her 80s told me she'd been living with her son and daughter-in-law who were verbally abusive. But I have nowhere else to go, she said, crying. I helped her find resources, a shelter, legal aid, a social worker. 6 months later, she sent me a card. I have my own apartment now. Thank you for believing me. And then one day I got a letter from Marcus. It was forwarded to me through Douglas's office. I stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. Dear Mom, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just need to say some things even if you never respond. I was wrong about everything. I let greed and fear and Brittany's voice drown out the voice in my head that told me what I was doing was wrong. I convinced myself that you'd be fine, that you didn't really need the money or the house or your independence. I told myself I deserved more because I'd worked hard, but the truth is I worked hard because you made it possible. Everything I have, everything I am is because of you, and I repaid you by trying to take everything from you. I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself, but I want you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. I see who I became, and I'm sorry. I know that doesn't change anything. I know I deserve to be here, but I hope someday you'll be able to think of me without hating me. I love you, Mom. I always will. Marcus. I folded the letter and set it down. I didn't cry. I didn't feel anger or grief. I just felt sad. Sad for the boy he used to be. Sad for the man he became. But I didn't write back, because some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. A year after the trial, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went on a trip. Not a vacation. A trip. I'd always wanted to see Italy. The art, the history, the food. So I booked a 2-week tour. Dorothy couldn't come. Her arthritis was acting up, but she sent me off with a hug and a command to eat all the pasta. I did. I wandered the streets of Rome, stood in front of the Sistine Chapel and cried at the beauty, ate gelato in Florence, watched the sunset over the canals of Venice, and for the first time in my life I felt truly free. Not free from Marcus, not free from the past, free to be myself. On my last night in Italy, I sat at a small cafe overlooking the Arno River. An older gentleman at the next table smiled at me. Traveling alone? He asked in accented English. I am, I said. Brave. I smiled. Not brave. Just finally living. We talked for an hour about art and life and the things we'd learned too late. His name was Giovanni. He was a widower, a retired teacher. When we parted, he kissed my hand and said, I hope you find everything you're looking for. I think I already have, I said. When I got home, I started a new painting. Not the ocean. Not a sunset. A self-portrait. I painted myself as I was now. Older. Wiser. Scarred but strong. And when I finished, I hung it in the center of my living room. A reminder. I survived. I fought back. And I won. 2 years after the trial, my life looked nothing like it used to. And that was exactly how I wanted it. I'd sold several paintings by then. Small ones mostly. At a local gallery that featured emerging artists. The owner, a woman named Claudia, told me my work had emotional depth. People connect with it, she said. They see the pain, but also the resilience. I didn't think of myself as an artist, but I loved creating. And for the first time in my life, I was doing something just for me. I also started a blog. It wasn't fancy, just a simple website where I shared my story and offered advice to other seniors facing elder abuse. I called it Second Acts because that's what I was living. A second act, a new beginning. I wrote about financial safety, red flags in family relationships, how to find legal help, how to rebuild after betrayal, and people responded. I got emails from all over the country, from people who'd been through similar situations, from people who needed help, from people who just wanted to say thank you. One email from a woman named Carol in Oregon stayed with me. I thought I was alone. I thought I was being dramatic, but your story made me realize I deserve better. I'm meeting with a lawyer next week. Thank you for giving me hope. I cried when I read it because I realized something. My pain hadn't been for nothing. It had a purpose. Dorothy and I celebrated my 70th birthday with a small party on the beach. Just a few friends, cake, wine, laughter. As the sun set, Dorothy raised her glass. To Helen, she said, the strongest woman I know. Everyone cheered. I felt a warmth spread through my chest. Not pride, gratitude for these people, for this life, for the second chance I'd fought so hard to get. I did hear about Marcus occasionally, through news articles, through Douglas. He was released early for good behavior after serving 4 years. Brittany served 3. They divorced 6 months after getting out. Marcus moved to another state, got a job in a warehouse, kept his head down. I didn't reach out, and he didn't reach out to me. Sometimes I wondered if he thought about me, if he regretted what he'd done, if he ever told his son, my grandson, the truth. But I didn't dwell on it, because my life wasn't about him anymore. One afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello, Mrs. Carter? Yes, my name is Angela Reyes. I'm a producer for a podcast called Stories of Strength. We feature real people who've overcome incredible challenges. I'd love to interview you about your story. I hesitated. I don't know. It would reach thousands of people, she said gently. People who need to hear what you have to say. I thought about Carol and Lorraine and all the people who'd written to me. Okay, I said. Let's do it. The podcast episode aired 3 months later. It was an hour long. I told my whole story. The betrayal, the fight, the trial, the aftermath. At the end, Angela asked me, what would you say to someone going through something similar right now? I took a breath. I'd say this. You are not a burden. You are not too old, too weak, or too powerless to fight back. Your life matters. Your dignity matters. And you don't have to accept mistreatment from anyone, not even family. And what about forgiveness? I paused. Forgiveness is complicated. You can forgive someone and still set boundaries. You can forgive someone and still demand justice. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting people back into your life. It means letting go of the anger so it doesn't poison your future. Have you forgiven your son? I've forgiven the boy he was. I'm still working on forgiving the man he became. The episode went viral. Within a week, it had over 1 million downloads. I started getting interview requests from magazines, radio shows, even a television program. I said yes to some, no to others, but I kept telling my story because every time I did, someone else found the courage to tell theirs. 3 years after the trial, I did something unexpected. I started a scholarship fund for older adults who wanted to go back to school, learn new skills, start new careers. I called it the Second Act Scholarship. I funded it with part of Uncle Will's money, the money Marcus never told me about. The irony wasn't lost on me. The first recipient was a 62-year-old woman named Diane who wanted to become a paralegal so she could help other seniors with legal issues. She sent me a thank you card with a photo of herself on her first day of class. You changed my life, she wrote. Now I get to change others. I framed it and hung it in my apartment. I also reconnected with old friends, people I'd lost touch with over the years because I'd been so consumed with taking care of Marcus. We met for lunch, coffee, long walks, and I realized how much I'd sacrificed. Not just money, but relationships, hobbies, myself. I vowed never to do that again. One evening, I was sitting on my balcony watching the sunset when my phone rang. It was the number I didn't recognize. Hello, Grandma. My heart stopped. It was my grandson, Marcus's son, Ethan. I whispered, yeah, it's me. I hadn't heard his voice in over 3 years. How did you get my number? Dad gave it to me. He said I should call you if I wanted to. Silence. I wanted to, Ethan said quietly. I missed you. Tears streamed down my face. I missed you too, sweetheart. Can I come visit you sometime? I closed my eyes. Of course. Anytime. Ethan came to visit a month later. He was 12 now. Tall, shy, but still the sweet boy I remembered. We spent the day together. At the park, at the beach, getting ice cream. He asked me questions about what happened, about why I left. I answered honestly, but gently. Your dad made some bad choices, I said, and I had to protect myself. But that doesn't mean I stopped loving you. Do you hate him? Ethan asked. I thought about it. No, I don't hate him. I just can't be close to him anymore. Ethan nodded. He's different now, he said. Quieter. Sad. People change, I said. Sometimes for the better. Do you think he'll ever be better? I hope so, I said. For his sake, and for yours. Before Ethan left, he hugged me tight. I'm glad I called you, Grandma. Me too, baby. As I watched him walk away, I felt something I I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Now, at 70 years old, I wake up every day grateful. Grateful for Dorothy, for Douglas, for the people who believed me and stood by me. Grateful for my little apartment, my paintings, my blog, my scholarship fund. Grateful for the life I built from the ashes. I'm not rich, I'm not famous, but I'm free, and that's worth more than anything. If you're watching this wherever you are, I want you to know something. You are stronger than you think. You deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, and it's never too late to start over. I did it at 68. You can do it too. So tell me, where are you watching from? Have you ever had to fight for your dignity, your freedom, your voice? Share your story in the comments. Let's walk through this together. And if this story meant something to you, please like and subscribe, because every voice matters, including yours.